One of the biggest fears for any successful practice owner is the dilution effect. You spend years building a reputation for excellence, but the moment you open a second location or hire that new injector, you lose control of the quality. Welcome back to the Business of Aesthetics podcast. I'm your host, Don Adeesha. So, how do you scale your business without downgrading your brand? To answer that, we are joined by Mary Ford. Mary is a powerhouse in clinical education. She is a CRNA, the co-founder of Smiley Aesthetics, and faculty trainer for the Allergan Medical Institute. She has successfully navigated the challenge of scaling multi-location practice while maintaining elite clinical standards. Today, we are going to be discussing the real competencies new injectors need, the operational stress test that you must pass before expanding, and how AI automation is changing the way modern clinics operate. This episode is brought to you by Equa Marketing, the digital growth partner behind this podcast and a trusted resource for aesthetic practices looking to dominate their local markets. Now, with that being said, Mary, welcome back to the show.
Thank you, Dawn. So happy to be here as always.
Absolutely. Let's get into the conversation. Now, as an Allergan Medical Institute faculty member, you see hundreds of injectors. When an
Mhm.
established practice owner is hiring their first or second associate, what is the specific clinical competency gap you most often see that separates a certified injector from one who is truly ready to treat patients autonomously?
Yeah, it's a good question because we get super focused in on our hands-on skill, which is obviously very important. But the market is dominated by nurses, and most nurses have already are pretty skilled with a needle actually as it comes out. So the hands-on, it's a confidence booster and a really just about nerves. In what I see in training more so than the actual skill set. So my answer to what is the gap that is consistently missed is much more anatomy focused and then rheology. So two totally kind of separate things that are obviously connected and extremely important. But the rheology behind the dermal fillers, that also goes to the background of neurotoxins and just what's happening down at that molecular level, which then folds right
Mm.
into how and where we inject it. And then anatomy being the second, not secondary by any means, but just another thing that there's a gap for, and it's just not, we're not taught facial anatomy. Most, I would argue, nursing and physicians are not intentionally taught this, unless of course you're derm or ENT or oculoplastic, but those are pretty specific fields. And this is just glazed over kind of in school for all of us. And then we glaze over it as well as injecting. If I know where to inject, why does it matter exactly anatomically what's going on? And we find out every day more and more with research that it does. So those gaps of rheology and anatomy are just ones that they certainly come in almost 100% of the time with zero knowledge, literally, quite literally zero, aside from maybe what we had given them in their pre-course materials. And then it's just kind of skimmed over after. They're just so focused on hands-on. So I think those are the two things I see the most. I don't think, I know those are the two things I see most consistently.
And how do you structure a mentorship or perhaps a shadowing period
Mhm.
at your own practice to actively close this gap before they ever see a patient alone?
Training's expensive, right? And so I'm going to acknowledge that first off. And while the easy answer is like, it's investing in the training, it's them. We either, a lot of our shadowing opportunities are free, especially once internally. But it costs money to go shadow people, all these things. So that's typically kind of the cost is always the excuse. So while acknowledging that as a practice owner, still thinking that's the number one thing we should be investing in as clinical providers, but then bringing back in the money part of it, which we have to, which this podcast and business aesthetics is so good with, is acknowledged. So then my
Mm.
best answer is when we do mentorships or training, we bring in the free resources or make sure that they are done, or if it's an outside person who has no affiliation with Smiley and is just simply training with me, I just ensure they have the access and understand the importance of it. The AMIs of
Mm.
the world, Gain, all of the large manufacturers, but I can certainly speak to AMI and Gain. Their programs are exceptional. Like the free resources, the free tools, the videos. I mean, it's just it's really it's really not even comprehensible how you can go Google a webinar that costs $300 and AMI has 17 of them that are free and done with a $2 million budget. And so didactically in video, it's getting people to realize that the at-home work continues, right? We had to study to get a nursing degree. We had to study for anesthesia. We had to study for these medical degrees. That only continues at home in a brand new field of medicine. It's like you're getting a new degree, Don. I mean, it's like you're getting a brand new degree in a certain field of medicine or a fellowship or a residency, and you have to treat it as such. And so back to your question, I love, you know me, I get on my little tangents, but I love structuring our hands-on and our mentorship or our shadowing and with the free resources that are out there, or the best options, the Patreons and stuff that are low cost but are offering just so much value to trainees and stuff.
Absolutely. Free doesn't mean you're lacking on quality as long as you choose
Right,
the correct option, right?
right.
Now, a little bit of a follow-up question to that. A lot of owners are kind of terrified to
Hmm.
overinvest in training
Hmm.
because the injector might just leave and open up a
Right.
competitor. How do you balance that rigorous clinical training with staff retention?
Yeah, so if I was being fully transparent, which why not? We at Smiley don't have. My answer is going to be surrounding like a clawback, in their contract. I think that's the best, most practical way to do it. But those can be, if I was being practical, and I hate to kind of say this out loud, those are really difficult to track down. You have to pay somebody to go after this person, and it costs to pay said person, the attorney, to go after whatever amount of money it is. And it's typically, not nothing crazy, right? If I send someone, to a 2-day training, or I mean, depends on your definition of crazy. Let's just say 10 grand. Well, an attorney going after this person for that can be, pretty costly in doing that. So it's still the best protection would be putting it in a contract, and then if they leave within a certain amount of time, their initial training or orientation is kind of given, they owe that back to you if they don't stay for a certain amount of time. That would be contractually how to protect yourself. Outside of that, I mean, we it's a risk that you take. I mean, the way I see it, and I'm overly, I've been told I've been an overly positive person in some things, but at least I'm putting out that person left. That would be unfortunate. They were probably not the right fit to begin with. And at least I'm putting someone out in the world, a medical provider that has my level and standard of training. And I know at least that they're going to run out and do hopefully okay, knowing that they came from that basis. So that's the very positive one. But there are some things in, you know, once again, tiny tangent, and something that my sister and I, who own Smiley with me, really get on is focus. That's something that we can't control. You can't control if people's lives change, whether it's truthful or they're just leaving to leave. And following them up, being mad about hiring an attorney, going after your 5 grand, your 6 grand, it's a distraction. It's ultimately a
Yeah,
distraction. Moving on is really what's going to produce the revenue, not the other way around. And I will say, I do hate to say that out loud because it's like, oh, maybe I have an employee in my current, practice that has been there for 3 months. We've invested all this time and they're considering leaving. But it just kind of is what it is. And then I'll say one more thing with this. You could utilize, once again, our manufacturer trainings, our AMIs, our gains, the hands-on trainings that have people who AMI trainers who come into your practice, start there first. Ask them if they have one available in their budget, because typically if the rep's providing it can be free. You can include other employees, and it's a great way to get some training that you don't necessarily are, it's coming straight out of your pocket.
absolutely. So setting clear expectations from the get-go, and then of
Mm,
course,
yes.
better safe than sorry. And
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I said a lot without letting you say anything. But it truly, if you have your expectations set, um, you will end up, and there needs to be a backup plan for someone just leaving. Now, that plan may not be a backup injector that you're ready to just plug and play in there, but just the thought of, could I survive if, this person doesn't produce revenue for the first several months? And yet I pour a lot of stuff into them because just like in a hospital, orientating somebody is extremely expensive. And having
Mm.
your processes and stuff down for doing that to make it as efficient as possible, can try to save you some money, but it is a risk we take.
Absolutely. And as a business, there's always risks, but
Yes.
positive acceptance bring about peace of mind. Uh,
Yes, for sure, for sure. That's a little, up here or whatever, but that's where I live. I live up here in the clouds, as my sister likes to say. So it's beneficial as well as distracting sometimes.
Now, Mary, scaling to multiple locations is often where clinical quality breaks down. How do
Mhm,
you operationalize your clinical protocols and culture to ensure that a
mhm,
patient receiving treatment at location A gets the same
mhm,
exact high standard experience as a patient at location B, even when
mhm.
you aren't there?
So this is like a multifaceted question to me, and the word that you use that I think what we can control for the most is experience, right? Is their experience. So so if I go start under that, that's the top thing that I would say my number one answer is what we would focus on, and I'll explain that in a second.
Mhm.
Secondarily, for me, also very difficult, and I can speak firsthand to this, and happy to ever talk to anybody letting go as we scaled and this injector, this first injector on, are they going to do it the way that I do it? No. Like we cannot, like, just no. It just isn't. It's not a realistic expectation. Once again, setting expectations in your own mind. And if I expect them to inject the exact same way that I do, I will most likely drive myself insane. And then multiply
Mhm.
that times our 9 locations, and all of a sudden I don't, my mental health, I'm not even really here anymore, right? So it's all you can set your expectations that injecting, and you learn this as you go, and hopefully when you go to hire your first person, you have kind of already learned this, but no one injects the same. No trainer really trains the same. Love going to basic trainings with other trainers and listening because I pick up something every time. And that's true in the injecting portion as well. We just, even if you poke in the exact same place, just how the syringe is held, the amount of pressure that's pushed, everything, the amount of products we think is should be put in that area can just be different and be correct, right? And can be, it's gosh, John, and this will ring true for any nursing. It's like our daggum boards where, all I select all that apply. It's like there's multiple best answers. What's the best? Who knows?
Yeah.
Who knows? I'm not even really sure. And so that is true. We're still too new to the industry to know that, a certain amount goes right here and is ejected this. We don't know the best option. So, with that being said, allowing yourself as the clinic owner or the master injector, I do not like that term, as the initial injector, most experienced, whatever you want to call yourself, you just got to let go and you got to know and trust in your training. Trust where you either sent them to be trained or trust in your own training, however you decide to do it, and believe in it and know that it's solid. And then that'll kind of help you, let go, because it's really just a letting go situation. If assuming you don't just have a brand new nurse come in and say bye, then it's just letting go of that control. The experience piece, though, we can't control for. So if a client walks
Mm.
in, has a experience in spot A that is extremely similar to spot B, from the warmth of the staff that they walk into. If you're a solo provider, same thing. How you greet them, their check-in, their check-out, just the whole process, their follow-up, everything. If that is great, and if that is consistent, then if an injection doesn't go as well in spot B, or that's not, that injector is, struggling a little bit with the skill, whatever it is, the client is so much just less likely to, I don't want to say care, but if this is all 10 out of 10 and this is a 6 or 7 out of 10 for some reason, we can work on this experience and stuff will send them packing and they won't come back. So I
Yes.
think making sure that experience from point A to point B, objectively, that's SOPs. That's how you do things. That's knowing how to check somebody out. It's just having your processes down before you open your second location. And then the subjective experience, feel good stuff is clean environment, making sure we do the things that are nice, our tone of voice, following up with clients, your basic stuff that is super important.
Mhm. And now culture is notoriously hard to document.
Mhm.
Is there a specific, tangible way you codify the Smiley aesthetics culture so a new manager in a different city replicates it perfectly?
That is difficult because now I think we're just, culture is just subjective, right? And when it's twofold. It's the culture that we have within Smiley amongst our employees and our staff, and then the culture that we present to the clients and more of the experience and everything that they go in. My favorite thing about Smiley Aesthetics, talking about it specifically, that we see, and we've had a little time to have some, have the ability to have learned this about our practice, is the word warm that gets put in reviews at every location. And just the warm environment. And so to that, for me, we're all in the South over here. So, that is the tone of voice. That is the, smiling. That is the therapy like sessions, if you will, where we talk to our clients like they're people, and stuff. And that really, really matters. And so when I see reviews on every single location that has that word and, those similar descriptions, I know we're doing something right. And I can it's difficult for me, as I said. I'm probably one of the worst of letting go of the control of the injecting and knowing, and trusting. It's much better now, but in the beginning, it was really hard for me. Um, but the warmth of the environment and stuff, and the clients just leaving happy. And even if we do need to follow up with them, or we need to correct or enhance or do anything, they just leave happier. And like I said, we have some data kind of now to prove that a bad outcome or a less than ideal outcome can be superseded by their experience. This will be fixed, assuming you don't go,
Mhm.
you have, and then if this is good, then they're still with us for life, and that includes on some of pretty VOs. We had one recently that was the worst I've ever seen. She is doing perfectly fine, and I look forward to presenting the case to the world. We're working on a video and stuff, but she is a client of ours for life because of her experience. But she had,
Yeah.
dissolving, just had to send her to another provider when she was on vacation, just the worst kind of case scenario. But we did exactly what we needed to do. Thankfully, she had an amazing outcome, but regardless, it was the experience. So that can really
Mhm.
matter. And she's already been back to have her with the VO in the lips, and she's already had her lips refilled with us. Of course, it was about a month and a half later, fully healed, blah, blah, blah. But that really says something. So that's where I'm most proud as a business owner. And when we hire a new employee, to circle back to the original question, that's what I point out. I want your reviews that come in to be read these. Here's a summary of all the. I want them to be reflective of that, and I'll be very happy. I'll take care of the rest of your training and stuff, and ensuring you get what you need. That's your part. That's what I need you to do.
Amazing. So two things, ensuring
Hmm.
that the best possible outcome
Hmm.
for the treatment, and then of course doing it warmly.
Yes. Yeah, that's a good yes. Doing it warm. That'll translate. That translate well. That's the best, and it's still the best word. I think. Like, of course, we want best possible outcomes. But we're not perfect, right? We're human. We can be very close to perfect on ensuring they have a great experience, regardless of the outcome.
There we go. Now, you identified operational foundations as a critical step
Mhm.
before expansion. What is the single most operational stress test a practice must pass before they even consider signing a lease for a second location?
Oh gosh. So operationally, so it's kind of, if do we put finances, if we want to take finances out, because there's so much to be said about being financially ready, which you could put on, you could tuck under operations, and stuff, pretty easily. But if we take out the are you financially ready, which is a whole, just another conversation, how to know you're financially ready, what KPIs are we looking at, those types of things, which is very important. But if we took that out, then those processes, those SOPs that are distracting for us as clinicians. So not everyone, opening a second location, what we have found typically doesn't come with, I get a front desk person, I get a medical assistant, I'm a provider, I get someone to help me with this and that. It's me as the owner going to the second location 1, 2 days a week. Sometimes I can open it full time with another provider, and that's it. And so if our foundational operational stuff, also, or AKA SOPs, and the things that cause us to be distracting, the inventory, that just, if that is all just not efficient, running well and perfect, it's just a distraction. And that just ends up
Mhm.
it. things get, the experience becomes not the best experience that it could be because I'm too, I don't have this set up. I don't have that product that I need. I mean, just the basic processes, everything else kind of falls apart after that. So, you know, the SOPs, we talk about that a lot on business aesthetics and with you guys and stuff. It's a broken record thing, but l- this the processes with which you do that, the step by step, doesn't have to be fancy, doesn't have to be anything. It should be nailed down and repeatable, scalable at that second location. And I think that's probably the best thing to have going outside of course, making sure you can afford it.
Right. So, tell me, when do you consider an SOP is complete, or rather,
Ooh.
you have all the SOPs down pat?
Mm-hmm. Uh-huh. Well, the MBA answer, which I'm getting my MBA or my executive MBA right now. I'm almost finished with it. Would be the SOP's never done, Dawn. It's never. It's a living document. Like this was like a pop quiz. It's a living document that's changing as you refine your processes and everything. That's the textbook answer. But to your
Mm.
point, okay, we have recently updated our SOP. We feel we are doing the most efficient thing we possibly can. Reviewing those quarterly or biannually, okay, that's definitely necessary to do. It's not something we have to look at every week and see if we can refine a process. But if we've looked at that, if that SOP has been done and proven to be an efficient, effective, safe, compliant, process, then that would be it's ready. Perfection and what is perfect, right? It's an SOP for checking somebody out, using the EMR system, having everything in place in there to successfully check somebody out, 4 or 5 clicks, know that it's gone to your inventory correctly, your traceability, your POS system is working. That's a pretty easy step by step. And once it's nailed down, we don't change that often. So if we've tested that, several several times, really hundreds of times. There's no special time limit
Mm.
for how we've
Mm.
tested these. But if we've tested it several times, it flows literally without any flaw, any update, then that SOP or that process is probably ready. But ultimately, they're
Mm.
living and they're ever changing and just something that we're constantly mindful of. And if you keep them updated, now I sound like Carla, if every time you do make a little change, if you could just make a mental note or a sticky note to pop in your SOP, have it pinned on your desktop or whatever and edit that, then these up to date things are scaling a location is, gosh, it's so much easier. It does become about revenue and stuff, and everything else is you already know how to do it. So just go repeat it.
Mm. Is there a feeling attached to a ready SOP?
Oh gosh. I mean, I don't know. That's is I don't think so. I think that I think it's, I don't know. I think it's a lot more objective. I think it's something that if you're reviewing it, quarterly, or when you're starting out, really every month, right? That first year, we should be looking at these often. And you look up and 2, 3, 4 months have gone by and you haven't changed that, or you haven't, there's not a thing you can think to kind of make it more efficient or better. You know, with for me, like that's a process that I can then, okay, that one's ready to be repeated. In
Mm.
terms of it's just, I think it should be pretty objective
Mm.
on those things. They're objective. SOPs are objective anyways, right? Extremely objective. So I don't think so. I'm really trying to think about that. I don't
Mm.
think so. I don't think there's a if you know, you know. I think it's has it been repeated effectively with no changes repeatedly.
If- So, how do you measure if it's sufficiently efficient?
Yeah. Well, I
Is there a
mean, that's where
benchmark?
well, that attaching your KPIs to your SOPs is a wonderful way to assess those, right? So KPIs is such a
Mm.
common. Oh my God, I just feel like it's thrown around, so much in all entrepreneurships or whatever, and it's really cool and it sounds really fancy and it does sound like you're talking about, except if you don't even know what your KPIs are. And it's like, yeah, I've got these great KPIs and everything, and we meet these, and it's like, well, what are they? It's like, well, it's client retention. Well, what does that even mean? Like, what
Mm.
exactly, they're defined, sentence, demonstrative statements that can be measured, objectively. So, I lost my train of thought a little bit. Your original question, I love my tangents. What was your question you?
We were talking about the operational foundations originally, but I
Right.
wanted to dive a little bit deeper
Yes.
with regards to when
Choice.
our SOPs efficient and, well, sufficiently efficient. How do
Oh,
you know?
yes. Yeah, and like I mean, I think it's just when it's been repeated multiple times with no changes, and then that deserves another question, like, well, how many times and how long? I don't, I think like it's just a really difficult thing to put a time on. I don't, and then I would argue every industry and then every task within every industry would need to be like studied to determine those numbers. So those are hard questions, Don. I mean, how do you know? I think attaching that KPI to it, like I said, where you can get some data from it, and see the trend or see the data improve, and whatever that looks like would be the best way to know if your SOP is working effectively.
That's perfect. That's a great answer, Mary. Really appreciate it. Puts
Hmm.
things
That's a
into
hard one.
perfect person. Yeah, but I think because I was really curious as to how are we measuring these SOPs,
Mm.
right?
Hmm.
So absolutely, SOP is tied to KPIs. You can
Hmm.
see the KPI benchmark in your industry, in your own market, and see how that's
Hmm.
doing. And before we continue, actually, a quick message from our sponsor,
Hmm.
Echo Marketing. So, Echo Marketing are offering our listeners a complimentary 60-minute digital strategy session. This is a one-on-one consultation with a senior strategist to help you map your 12-month high-value patient acquisition roadmap. You'll get a personal diagnosis of your online presence and patient funnel, uncovering untapped growth levers across SEO and social, along with all those most important KPIs related to marketing, digital marketing specifically, and you'll be walking away with a clear, actionable plan tailored just for your practice. You can check the availability and reserve your spot in under 2 minutes at businessofesthetics.org/MSM. That's Business of Aesthetics, one word, .org/MSM. All right, let's jump back in with Mary.
Well, Don,
Uh,
let me speak to that real quick. I will say we took advantage of that. We actually did ours with Naren. This has been a while ago because we've worked with you guys for a while, and just exceptional. It's just something that aside from the free part and that it's not the same analysis that you get no information that we do with some other people. I just have to say this. It actually gave meaningful feedback and stuff, and we weren't actually ready initially to, I believe back then, to be able to start with you guys, but the depth and detail with which it was done, we were right back with you, and 2 months later, and then in the community and everything, and able to join later. So it's just exceptional and so valuable. So I have to say that when you bring that up.
Absolutely. And we are grateful, Mary, for that wonderful feedback. Uh, Now, in your advanced training, you often discuss misunderstood aspects of injectables. From a
Mhm.
safety or anatomical perspective, what is the one clinical myth that even experienced injectors believe, which you have corrected in your masterclass?
Oh gosh, which one? Oh, there's it. I am still surprised always when experience, what is experience? Let's just say someone who's been injecting over 3 years, 3 to 5 years or more, comes to a training or is at a training that I'm at and does say something that it's not that and it's not an opinion, right? It's a black and white like fact about anatomy that is just incorrect. And so I think that the abundance of available information online is unfortunate, is not a is both fortunate and unfortunate, but in a lot of ways it's unfortunate if we don't remember our backgrounds in learning and what is real, what is not, and how to research. How to research is what I'm trying to say. A TikTok video doesn't qualify as research. I don't care if someone's wearing a white coat and their username is Dr. So and so, and until you go verify that they are who they say they are. But we just don't. So the myths that are found, almost that I found, almost all come from social media, and I don't mind it being a question. It's when it
Yeah.
becomes a fact before it's ever a question, right? I love there are no dumb questions, and I believe that, really, and I believe that in this. Sometimes in my head I'm like, but also a question's a question, and it should always, be treated as, as an opportunity. So, a big myth that comes in, for example, surrounding migration with like dermal filler, if we wanted to be specific, and that it can, the use, one of the most famous things in the last year or two was that MRI that someone posted that said, here's the before 10 years and here's the after 10 years of an MRI of a face, and the filler, they lit up these areas on the face, which can also be done with AI,
Yeah.
and said, this is all filler. I mean, it went viral. The world believed it, right? Filler's crawling up the face up here. It's crawling down the face. It's grown feet and arms, and it's just like going all over, and anatomically, it's simply impossible. We can't, filler doesn't go against gravity, and, with it by itself and just gravitate up. It doesn't grow feet, and it can't cross over ligaments. It can't cross through, tendons, bone. I mean, just, it's like, guys, we can't get filler from over here down to here. It's not anatomically possible unless you stuck a needle in here and somehow made it magically through the mouth, all the way across. It's just not possible. So, using our brains, Don, like we are critical. We were trained to critically think, both in, especially in nursing. That's where I give a leg up. It is such a huge part of our nursing school and our training and stuff. It's this critical thinking piece, which is so also subjective. You're like, what? This is where the choose all that apply comes in, or all that are correct. And it seems like we lose that in medical aesthetics, and we believe a TikTok video. And so,
Yeah.
The myths and the stuff are perfect for stimulating questions and stimulating research, but taking on or trying out or anything without critically thinking through it, common sense, and then doing research surrounding it is just crucial. Otherwise you're just a cowboy following a TikTok video, and we can't be doing that as medical providers.
Absolutely. Now, when you correct this myth, perhaps on stage, what is the typical reaction from these experienced providers? Do you get
Mhm.
pushback?
No, usually, usually it's a light bulb moment, right? So, and I don't, I probably say things, I'm not perfect. I'm sure there are things that I say, although I'm very careful, what I say,
Mhm.
obviously what I say on a podcast or on stage, to ensure that it's accurate or as close to accurate or has some sort of evidence behind it. But typically when, it's a lot of times it's just light bulb moments. We just, you know, those of us that people who train and on social media and are loud on social media or whatever, we're not, no one's perfect. So things can be said that aren't true, or there are things that we simply haven't studied. And I've done this with 20 clients, and here's my experience. And so those things are okay. I think people typically, when they realize something that is a myth, is a myth, it's usually received well. It's usually a light bulb moment, and really kind of exciting, because it's just, I never thought of it that way, or I never, whatever it is. And usually it's received well. There's, you always have pushback on some things. You always have, now I think we're going through, and I bring up social media a lot because it's just where people get their information. We're seeing some paid campaigns to, take down this product or that product by these companies, which is so unfortunate with medicine. But we just have to use our common sense. We have to use that critical thinking training we have as medical providers. And then when you see something, just go look it up. It's just, Don, we have ChatGPT at our fingertips. Like, not to get to the AI question coming up, but at the very least, going to AI, asking to, review the literature on this. On, I just saw this. Can you give me any literature or peer reviewed journal articles that speak to this? And then make a decision. I mean, we're talking about 60 seconds at this day and age. So, just make the effort.
Make the effort, absolutely. And for our practice owners listening in, Mary, who might not be the primary injectors themselves, what is the one question they should ask their clinical team tomorrow to ensure that they aren't operating under this myth?
Oh, goodness. One question to ask their clinical team. Yeah, it's really difficult when you're, I can't, I, we've had amazing quality in our and compliance in our company or an organization. We currently have our current director of quality and compliance is a clinician, as well as that her 20 years of in quality and compliance in the hospitals and stuff and in aesthetic practices. Exceptional. So fortunate to have her. Being able to have someone who is both clinically aware as involved in the operation or in the compliance piece of it, I can't recommend that enough. Now we're talking about a diamond. That's hard to find, right? They don't exist. Compliance in med spas or compliance officers, they're not really a thing. That's like we were kind of new when we brought somebody on 2 years ago, and like I said, we've recently transitioned to this woman, and she's amazing. So that would be my first like non-practical answer, right? Because a lot of people don't necessarily have someone to hire, but then that's where business of aesthetics and some of these practices or some of these consulting services come in to be able to offer that, right? And then it's something that you outsource. So that's a tangent. The question to ask is, it's like, is it safe? Is what keeps popping into my head. And so it's like, that's so broad. Like, that's not helpful at all. But if you ask me, is injecting Botox safe? I can give you a rundown of why it has been shown to be ridiculously safe. Can you do that for
Mm.
everything that you're offering? So, and it is breaking it down into services. One question is tough, but it's like, is it safe applied to whatever we're doing? If you're injecting something or using a device, is it safe? If your answer is just, well, yeah, it's safe. Well, okay, that's not an answer. Why is this considered safe? Maybe that's a better question, Don. Why do you consider this to be
Hmm.
safe for your treatments? And they should be able to give that answer should include enough knowledge and enough background, enough research, enough of whatever for them to actually be performing a treatment. We have to know why we're doing what we're doing. So, okay, I'm going to refine it one more time. Why are you doing, why are you treating the patient with this? Maybe that's the
Yeah.
question. Why? Why is the best question? Why are we doing what we're doing? Because that will inevitably lead down to the research, to the education, and to the training that we hopefully would have gotten for why we brought that into the practice. So I think why, which is my biggest TED Talk tangent ever, why are you doing what you're doing? If you can't answer that, you're not doing it. And if the answer is I saw it on
Absolutely.
TikTok, okay, well, we have our answer.
There we go. The source
Yeah.
is very important where you get the answers
Yes.
from.
Yes.
Exactly. So now we are hearing a lot about AI in marketing, but less about it in operations. How are you specifically using AI and automation tools within Smiley Aesthetics to reduce the administrative burden on your clinical team so that they can focus purely on that patient care?
Yes. So, outside, I'm glad we're taking AI and marketing kind of out of it because of course it has its place, but that's kind of its whole other topic. So, and operationally, where you're using it as automated messaging and responses and some of that, that can be considered marketing, but it's getting a response to a client a little bit quicker, on Meta for free. You can fill out FAQs for the AI, to use. To use to be able to answer your questions to get them some stuff that's more efficient, gives them an answer quickly, kind of falls in our marketing as well. Where we use it specifically, like in our operations, a good example, we use Microsoft, I'll say, and so our Copilot and some of our AI software for forms for our employees, like our inventory. I'm trying to give a primary example. Our entire training process, for example, with our training clinic is automated. The form automates into Monday, which is a software that uses AI to adjust and filter and organize things, and then automated emails are sent out based on this flow of automation. So I guess the answer would be automations. For our operations. We've automated almost everything we can with AI that is administrative. ChatGPT is something that Carla and I am on it constantly, both personally and professionally, because finding out information, finding out ways to do things more efficiently. Once again, outside of marketing, when it comes to just, I can't think of something to do or ideas for content or copy sometimes can be really great. It can help in that realm. And then in our charting clinically, which is in an
Hmm.
operational way, some of our EMRs are now integrating the voice to text and the AI summaries of
Wow.
our appointments and stuff. So that was a really confusing answer for I get. we're automating all that we can with AI, from email responses and out of office messages, or in office and I'm injecting messages if you're a solo provider. Your EMR, I mean, if you're still paper charting, we need to, there are the software we need to be investing in our software, that we can then link into our marketing and stuff, and be able to keep all that in one place. And then client responses, client questions, stuff like that AI can be trained very easily, and effectively to answer questions and stuff from clients, quicker, especially if you're the solo provider.
Amazing. And Mary, just to round things out for the podcast session, what's the golden nugget of the conversation? What's the golden nugget, in fact, of March 2026 for the aesthetic industry?
Uh, you know, it's why. It's the why. It's the why. Why are you doing do you have an answer? Because it goes in, Don, it goes into SOPs, it goes into, why are you using paper charting, which could be then like, why are you not using AI? Why are you not using I mean, why? So the golden nugget is ask yourself why you're doing what you're doing. And then if the answer, I use paper charting because I don't want to make the change over to, if the answer you know pretty well, or talk to a consultant, that's what a consultant could be. If the answer is not sufficient that you know yourself or someone will call you out for, then okay, then you need to make a change. And feelings, fear, some of those things, in business, it's not going to work well. And then clinically, I don't need to go back on the tangent of why are you doing what you're doing? If you can't answer why you're putting even Botox exactly where you're putting it, with the depth, the needle, everything, if you can't answer my why, question down into the details, then that's a problem, and it needs to be resolved. If you're able to answer why you do the things you do in marketing, operational, clinical, and you have a good reason, you're probably doing pretty well. And then I know we're wrapping it up, but I've been ending a lot of podcasts and talks with, you know, and in my email signature, it's courage, consistency, and kindness. In this industry, we need this the most. Like, we need to have the courage to change. We need to have the courage to be entrepreneurs. We have to have the courage to, do things that we're uncomfortable with, because this is a brand new industry. We're medical providers who really don't make good entrepreneurs. We just really, it takes a lot of work for us. There are some of us that are okay, but for the most part, we chose medicine for a reason. And so it takes courage to do this and to operate a med spa, to be a provider, to stick needles in people's faces, to deal with cash-based industry where people make their own dosages, and it takes courage to do that. If you're consistent with the things that you do, you consistently work on your business, you consistently train and educate yourself clinically, and you consistently have courage, consistently are kind, consistency, you can reach almost any goal. If you thought about it, if you are consistent in working towards a goal, you're going to reach it. And then Don, we got to be kind. We got to be kinder. It's gotten better since I started in the industry. Gosh, it's like 7 years ago now. But we got to continue to be kind. We don't have to believe in everybody. We don't have to like everybody. We don't have to agree with everybody, but you can always, always be kind. Everything can be presented in a kind, way. And sometimes silence is kind. So,
Wonderful. Wonderful.
yeah.
What an amazing way to end this podcast, Mary. It has been an amazing conversation. Uh, where can our listeners really go to learn more about you, Smiley Aesthetics, and your training programs?
Sure. Yeah, I am at Injector Smiley on Instagram. We put a lot of stuff flows through there, both with the, in general with the med spas, and then a lot of my stuff is focused on training. SmileyAesthetics.com, and then /training to get specifically to that. We have a Patreon. Everything is just under Smiley Aesthetics, or Injector Smiley. So those things will typically come up as ways to help. And then we love coming on Business with Aesthetics. We plan to get some of these, up on our website and stuff, so that people can view these and I really learn, because they're just invaluable.
Absolutely. So that was an insightful session with Mary Ford. Before we sign off, a quick reminder, Echo Marketing is offering a complimentary 60-minute digital strategy session. This is a one-on-one consultation to help you map your 12-month growth roadmap. Check the availability and reserve your spot in under 2 minutes at businessofesthetics.org/MSM. That's businessofesthetics, one word, .org/MSM. With that being said, I'm Don Adeesha, and this has been the Business of Aesthetics podcast. Thanks for listening and keep on leading.
Thank you.